What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Game Night YouTube channel. In today's video, guys, I've got a Crypt Crawler update for you. So, if you're not familiar, Crypt Crawler is the name of my Mint Tin dungeon crawler game that I've been working on and designing, and I've got some pretty exciting news, guys. I've got about half of the cards done with the full artwork and everything, and I want to show you guys the progress on the game. So that's what we're going to get into today. So I've got several different types of cards that I want to show you guys, so we're going to jump right into this. Alright guys, so check it out. We've got the enemy cards first off. This is the Banshee, and you'll notice too, there's a bunch of gray area around the outside of the card. That is going to get chopped off during production. A lot of that's going to get chopped off, and yeah, these will fit on Mint Tin sized cards. So there are going to be two different sizes of cards in Crypt Crawler: Mint Tin sized cards and mini cards. So for the enemies here, they're going to go on the Mint Tin sized cards. And yeah, here we go. We got the Banshee here up on the screen. We got his name up at the top, and we've got the artwork, of course. I really like the way he came out. I'm liking the art style that I'm going with this too. It's very colorful. It's really vibrant, and yeah, it gives me like old school D&D vibes. I really dig it. And so I'll just kind of run over everything that you're seeing on the card here. So you've got the name up at the top, you've got the artwork, then right below that, the 3, that is the armor class of the enemy. That's what you have to roll or higher in order to hit the enemy in combat. And down below that, you've got its attack values, and I've created some little symbols to display what type of damage it deals. So in the first box, if you roll a 1, 2, or a 3 on a d6, it'll deal 2 damage. If it's got the blood drop, it just deals straight up 2 damage to your hit points. If you roll a 4 or a 5, it'll deal 3 damage. And if you roll a 6, it'll deal 3 fear damage. So it'll increase your fear by 3. Then down below that, you've got some symbols. So starting at the top left, you've got the skull. That's how much experience points you're going to gain from defeating the enemy. To the right of that, you've got the little purple crystal. That's the soul fragments. That's how many soul fragments you will get for defeating the enemy. Then to the right of that, you've got a gold coin. That's how much gold coins you're going to get if you defeat the enemy. And to the right of that, you'll see a yellow gem. Now, there are 3 different color gems. There's actually 4 different color gems. One of them will be gray. If it's gray, it'll have a 0 and you don't get any loot. If it's a green gem, that's a common loot, and it'll display a value of how much common loot you get to pull from the loot deck. If it's a yellow gem, that'll be an uncommon loot, and if it's a red gem, that will be a rare loot. So in this case, for the Banshee, you're going to get 1 uncommon loot when you defeat him. Then down on the bottom row on the left, the heart, of course, is how many hit points the Banshee starts with, which is 6. The shield next to it is its toughness. That is how much damage it will be able to mitigate from your attacks. To the right of that is its strength with the orange diamond symbol, and it has 1 strength. And then to the right of that with the yellow lightning bolt symbol is its speed, and the Banshee is pretty fast with 6 speed. Then next up, we've got the demon. I love the way this dude came out. He is really menacing looking. I love the horns, the green eyes. He looks really cool. Yeah, this guy is really powerful. This is the nastiest enemy in the enemy deck. Of course, other than the bosses, this is like the hardest normal enemy that you're going to face in Crypt Crawler. He's got 4 armor class. He does 2 damage, 3 damage, and if you roll a 6 with him, he does 3 burn damage, which is really brutal because you take burn damage every single turn. So that's really brutal. He gives you 4 XP. He gives you 3 soul fragments, 2 gold, and 1 rare loot. So he is a really valuable enemy to kill. He's very hard to kill, but he gives you a ton of loot. And he's got 8 health, 1 toughness, 3 strength, and 5 speed. So he is definitely a very formidable foe. Then next up, we've got the Ghost. I really like the way this dude came out. He's pretty whimsical looking. He's creepy looking though too. And this guy is all about fear. He's going to up your fear meter a lot whenever he attacks. So as you can see, he's got 4 armor class. He's pretty tough to hit. And his attacks all deal fear, 1, 2, and 3 fear respectively. And then he will drop 3 XP and 3 soul fragments, but no gold and no loot because he's a ghost. He doesn't have anywhere to hold it, but he'll give you a lot of XP and he'll give you a lot of soul fragments. He's got 5 health, 0 toughness. He deals 3 extra damage, so even whenever he hits you with his fear attacks, he's also going to hit you for 3 normal damage as well. And he's got a speed of 6, so he's also pretty fast. And next up, we've got the Goblin. This is actually the first enemy that I completed for Crypt Crawler. He's got an armor class of 3. He's a little bit on the easier side. He does 1 damage, 2 damage, or if you roll a 6 with him, he'll do 4 damage. So all just normal damage to your health. Nothing too fancy going on with the Goblin. He will give you 2 experience points. He'll drop 1 soul fragment and 1 gold coin and 0 loot. He's got 2 health, 1 toughness, 0 strength, and 2 speed. So this is one of the easier enemies to fight in the game. You'll run across these pretty frequently. And then we've got the Ooze. This is definitely one of my favorite artworks that I did for the enemies. It was just really fun to draw, and I love the way he came out. He's really scary looking, especially with the one eyeball and his mouth open and dripping with goo and slime and ooze. Yeah, he just looks really, really cool. I love the way he came out. And this guy is going to poison you. So he's got 2 armor class. He's really easy to hit. He's fairly slow. And whenever he hits you, he does poison damage. So if you roll a 1 through 3, he does 1. If you roll a 4 or 5, he'll do 2 poison. And if you roll a 6, he'll poison you for 3. He gives you 1 experience point, 1 soul fragment, 1 gold, and 1 common loot. Of course, the green gem denotes common loot, and he'll drop 1 common. He's got 3 health, 0 toughness, and 0 strength, and 2 speed. So he's really slow. He doesn't really deal any extra damage, but he will poison you if he's able to hit you. Next up, we've got the Orc. This dude is pretty cool looking. I like the way he came out. He's pretty menacing looking. He's got an armor class of 3, so a little bit on the easier-ish side to hit. And he just does normal damage, very similar to the Goblin, but he's basically like a beefed up version of the Goblin. So he does 2, 3, and 4 damage for his damage output. He'll give you 3 experience points. He drops 2 soul fragments, 2 gold, and 1 common loot. So he's pretty worth killing. He gives you a lot of good stuff. He's got 5 health. He's got 1 toughness and 2 strength, which is pretty good for an enemy around his caliber, I guess. He's kind of like a mid-range enemy, and he's got 5 speed, so he is pretty quick. This is going to be a tough enemy for sure. And then we've got the lowly rat. It's just a little rat scurrying around in the dungeon, and this guy's pretty easy to hit. He's got 2 armor class, and he does very low damage. This is the easiest, weakest enemy in the game. He does 1, 2, or 3 normal damage, depending on what you roll for his attack. He gives you 1 experience point, 1 soul fragment, no gold, and no loot. And he's got 2 health, 0 toughness, 0 strength, and he's got a speed of 5. That's about the only thing he's got going for him. So you'll see rats pretty frequently, but they don't give out, very great rewards, obviously, because they're so easy to kill. But yeah, this is going to be a cool little enemy to face. And of course, whenever you draw modifiers from the deck, as you get deeper into the dungeon, the rats can actually get pretty powerful. So yeah, you'll fight some stronger rats deeper into the dungeon. And then we've got the skeleton. This dude is crazy looking. I really like the way he came out, man. He's just, I don't know. I went for like a really weird look with him, like with the flesh and everything underneath his armor. It's weird. It's just really strange. It's not like any normal skeleton that you'll see in most games. It's like he still has some flesh on him, but just his head is a skull. It's strange looking, but I really, really like this one. And I like that he still has his armor on. Yeah, I don't know what happened to that guy, but something crazy happened to whoever that used to be. He's really scary looking, and he's a pretty tough enemy too. He's got 3 armor class, and similar to the Goblin, he hits for 1, 2, or 4 normal damage. He'll give you 2 experience points. He drops 2 soul fragments, 0 gold, but he will drop 1 common loot. He's got 3 health, 1 toughness, 1 strength, and 4 speed. So he's a pretty good mid-range enemy too, and definitely worth killing to get some loot and fragments off of. And then we've got the spider. This is definitely one of my favorite artworks that I did for the enemies. He looks really cool. He's just really nasty looking. I like that I went with the red. It really pops. It's really vibrant looking. Yeah, and he's a little bit on the easier side to hit with 2 armor class, but he makes up for it by being really fast, and he can poison you. So like the Ooze, this is the other enemy in the game that can actually give you poison damage. He hits you for 1 if he rolls a 1 through 3, so that's pretty typical. And then the other half of the time, if you roll a 4 or a 5, he'll hit you for 1 poison, or if you roll a 6, he'll hit you for 2 poison. He gives you 2 experience points. He drops 1 soul fragment, 1 gold, 0 loot. He's got 3 health, 0 toughness, 1 strength, and 8 speed. He is the fastest of all the enemies in the game. He's very quick, so most of the time, you got to be careful with this guy because you might get poisoned before you even get a swing on him. And then we've got the troll, and he is a troll indeed, and you'll see why soon enough. This guy's got 4 armor class. He is tough to hit, and he hits hard. He does 2 damage, 3 damage, and 5 damage, all normal damage, but he really dishes it out. He's got 3 experience points that he'll grant you. He'll drop 3 soul fragments, which is good, and 3 gold coins, the most gold coins of any of the enemies in the game, which is great, but he drops 0 loot. This is definitely one of the tougher enemies, probably the second toughest enemy behind the demon, and he drops no loot. So he's definitely a troll, but he makes up for it because he gives you some other stuff in the form of XP, soul fragments, and gold. He's got 7 health, which is the second highest health, and he's got 2 toughness and 2 strength, man. So even when he rolls a 1 through 3 and he hits you for 2 damage, he's tacking on another 2. He's hitting you for 4. If he rolls a 6, he's hitting you for 7. So this guy really packs a punch, and he's got a pretty average speed at 4. So this is going to be a tough enemy to face. You'll face him fairly rarely, and you got to be careful if you end up pushing your luck into a troll. And then we've got the Warlock. This is the second artwork that I did for the enemies. Really dig the way this dude came out. I'm loving his purple garb that he's wearing, and he's pretty creepy looking. He's pretty scary looking. He's got no pupils in his eyes, just white out eyes. And the Warlock has 3 armor class, and similar to the demon, he can burn, except he has more chances to burn you. He'll hit you for 2 normal damage with his 1 through 3 attack. A 4 or 5 will hit you for 2 burn, and a 6, like the demon, will burn you for 3. So this guy is casting fireball spells all day. He'd give you 2 XP, 2 soul fragments, 1 gold coin, and 1 uncommon loot, which makes this guy definitely worth going after. He's got 5 health, 0 toughness, 1 strength, and 4 speed. This dude is definitely good to go after to pick up some of the uncommon loot, but there's a trade-off because he can burn you, so you got to be careful when you face the Warlock. And last but not least of the enemies in Crypt Crawler, we've got the zombie. This dude is creepy looking. He's got blue, pale skin. He's got wounds all over his body, white out eyes, much like the Warlock that we just took a look at. He is nasty looking. You don't want this dude biting you, but he's a little bit on the easier side. This is definitely one of the easier enemies, probably down there with the goblin and the rat. A little bit harder, I think, than the rat, obviously, but he'll hit you for 2. He's got 2 armor class, by the way, so he's very, very easy to hit. He'll hit you for 2 with his first attack. His second attack will hit you for 3, and if he rolls a 6, he does 2 fear damage. So he's got that going for him. He actually inflicts fear damage to you, much like the ghost. He gives 1 experience point when you kill him. He drops 1 soul fragment and 1 gold. So not much on the loot, and he drops 0 loot. You won't get any loot cards from him. So pretty low on his treasure that he drops. And he's got 3 health, so definitely on the low side. 0 toughness. He does have a strength of 1, and he's got a speed of 2 because he's a zombie. He's just shuffling around really slow. So again, this is going to be on the easier side of things, but you got to be careful because he can cause fear. All right, guys, next up, we've got the loot cards. I am super excited to show you guys these loot cards. I've added some new ones in. I've removed some that used to be in the game. So if you've been playing the beta on the Tabletop Simulator, yeah, you might notice that some of these are new, and some of your old loot cards that you might have picked up in the dungeon previously are now gone and have been replaced. But it's for the better. I definitely think it's for the better. So the first one we're looking at here is the amulet. So you'll notice there is the artwork, obviously, and then there are a couple of little symbols here. So in the bottom left of the artwork, there are going to be different symbols to denote what type of loot this is. So if it's got a ring symbol, that means that it is an accessory. So you'll be able to have as many accessories as you want, and we'll get into the other loot types as we go through them. So this is an accessory if it's got the ring symbol. And then you'll notice that it's got a yellow gem with a 6 on it. So of course, the gems are going to carry over from the gems that were on the enemy cards, and green is common, yellow is uncommon, and red is rare. So this is an uncommon loot, and this is the number 6 uncommon loot. So when you're dropping an uncommon loot from an enemy, you'll roll a d6, and whatever value you get, 1 through 6, that's the corresponding uncommon loot card that you'll grab out of the loot deck. So if you roll a 6, you get the amulet on the uncommon loot table. And it says, once per dungeon level, you may avoid combat with an enemy. So this amulet, this magical amulet, will let you avoid combat completely with one enemy once per dungeon level. So if you go all 5 dungeon levels, if you pick this up on the first level, if you get lucky enough, you can actually avoid 5 entire combats throughout the game. So this is a very, very powerful amulet or very powerful item. And this definitely remedies a situation in the game where sometimes you might run into an enemy that is just really, really difficult. This will get you out of a sticky situation. Next up, we've got the axe. So this item right here is a one-handed item. And of course, you can have an item in your primary hand and you can have an item in your offhand. So, and you can't hold two weapons, one in your primary and one in your offhand, but you can hold shields in your offhand. So this is going to be a one-handed weapon, the axe here, as you can see with the one hand symbol down in the bottom left of the artwork. And it's an uncommon. It is the second on the uncommon loot table. And when you attack with this weapon, if you roll a 1, 2, or a 3, you're going to inflict 2 damage. If you roll a 4 or a 5, you'll inflict 3 damage. And if you roll a 6, you'll inflict 5 damage. And it says, when you attack with this weapon, you may throw it by discarding it to inflict double damage. So this works really well when you're fighting the boss. When you attack with this, if you roll a 6, man, and you get 5 damage, you can throw it to double its damage up to 10. So this is basically the boss killer, but it's a great weapon to carry along with you throughout the dungeon. Now we've got one of the common loot here. This is the buckler. So this is an offhand item, and of course you can use this to block incoming damage. It is a common loot, and it is the 5th on the common loot table. And you'll notice we've got 3 symbols on this card. So all the way on the left, the little shield symbol with the 2, that is how much toughness you get whenever you have the buckler equipped. The symbol in the middle of the armor, and it's got the 0 on it, that's your armor class. So this gives you 0 armor class. Some of the armor or shields will increase your armor class value. So this one gives you 0. And then the one all the way on the right, the symbol on the right, that is an anvil symbol, and that shows you the durability of the item, and it is 2. So anytime you take damage from an enemy and you mitigate it with your 2 toughness that you receive from the buckler, you'll reduce the durability of the buckler down by 1. And once you've used it twice, you break the buckler breaks, and then you have to discard the buckler back into the loot deck, but you could always find another buckler. So this is definitely kind of on the lower end of the totem pole as far as armor goes, but it is a common after all, but still a very, very useful item for sure. Now we're moving back to the uncommons. This is the 5th uncommon. This is the chainmail, and as you can see in the bottom left of the artwork, it's got a little shirt symbol. That means it goes on your body, and of course you can only wear one piece of loot on your body at a time. So if you were to pick up another one, you could either discard the chainmail and equip the new one, or you could discard the one you get and just hang on to the chainmail. And it gives you 1 toughness, but it also gives you 1 armor class, which is going to make it harder for enemies to hit you, which is incredible. So where it lacks in the toughness that it gives you, it really makes up for it in the armor class that it gives you. And it's got a durability of 3. So this is going to be hanging around for quite a while, definitely longer than the buckler. Oh, now we're getting into the juicy stuff. We've got the first item on the rare loot table. This is a 2-handed weapon. It is the claymore. I think this is my favorite art that I did for the loot cards. I just love the way the sword came out. It looks really, really cool. I love the amethyst gem down there in the hilt and the gold accents on the card. Really dig the way this one came out. And yeah, as mentioned, it is a rare, so this is going to be one of the better loot cards that you can find. And it does 3, 4, or 5 normal damage, depending on what you roll. And it says, when you roll a 6 to inflict damage, you heal 2 HP. So not only will you deal 5 damage, you'll also heal 2 HP. Because, yeah, this claymore is a magical healing claymore, apparently, and this is going to be a good way to gain health outside of the shop. So, yeah, like I mentioned, this is definitely my favorite artwork, I think, for the loot cards. Love the way the claymore came out. And then we've got the club. This is actually a new piece of loot. So, the club is a common. It's the 3rd one on the common loot table. It's a one-handed item, and it does 1, 2, or 4 damage, depending on your roll. And it says, when you defeat a rat with this weapon, you gain +1 food. So anytime you face a rat in the dungeon, you can bash it with the club and you'll gain +1 food. And of course, food will give you either 1 to your stamina or 1 to your health. So this is definitely good to have if you run into rats, or if you have the club. This will incentivize you to resolve cards that have rats as fights. Because, even though rats typically don't give you a lot of loot or anything, they just give you the 1 soul fragment and the 1 experience point. This definitely makes it more advantageous to face off against them and gain yourself some food to increase your health or to up your stamina as you move through the dungeon. And then we've got another common. This is the very first common on on the common loot table. This is the dagger. So another very simple weapon here. It's a one-handed weapon. It does either 2, or 3 damage, which is actually pretty decent. Like a majority of the time, you're going to be dealing 2 damage, which is not bad. If you roll a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, you're going to deal 2 damage. And when you roll a 6, you'll deal 3. So you'll deal a little bit more. And the real good thing about the dagger is that it increases your speed by 1. So you're really quick when you have the dagger. So it's not going to dish out quite as much damage as some of the other weapon cards, but it makes up for it by increasing your speed and allowing you to potentially attack first in a lot of scenarios that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise. So very cool little loot to get, especially early on in the dungeon. Then we've got the helmet. This is an armor that goes on your head. It's one of 2 pieces of loot that you can wear on your head. And this is an uncommon. It's the 4th uncommon. And it gives you some pretty good stuff, dude. It gives you 2 toughness, just like the buckler, but it also gives you 1 to your armor class, like the chainmail. So this one is really good, and it's got the 3 durability like the chainmail. So it's basically like a better version of the chainmail. This is a super, super good loot to find early on and late in the dungeon. The helmet is very powerful, and if you got the helmet and the chainmail, then you're in a really, really good spot. So yeah, this is a great loot to find, and we'll get into the one other piece that you can wear on your head in just a little bit. But first, we've got the longbow. We got another rare, dude. Let's go. So the claymore, I think, is the only rare that we've seen so far. The longbow is the 6th loot on the rare table. It takes 2 hands to use, much like the claymore, and it does 2, 4, or 6 damage. It's got a pretty good damage output there. And check this out. Inflict +2 damage to enemies with toughness greater than 1. So those pesky enemies that are getting toughness bonuses from the modifier cards that are really tough to hit, dude, if you find a longbow, if their toughness is greater than 1, so 2 or more, you're dealing +2 damage to those dudes with the longbow. So this is a very powerful item, especially against armored enemies. And then we've got another sword in the form of the longsword. This is the 1st on the uncommon loot table. It's a one-handed item, and it's a pretty basic item. It doesn't have any special abilities, but it makes up for that in its damage output. So if you roll a 1 through a 5, you're hitting for 3 damage. Very, very solid. And of course, you tack on your strength and any other bonuses. And then if you roll a 6, it hits for 4 damage. So this is just a really good, solid weapon, because most of the time you're going to be cracking on those enemies for 3 damage, and that's going to add up quick. So there you go. That is the longsword. And we've got ourselves another rare. This is the 4th on the rare loot table. This goes on your body. It is plate mail. The plate mail is the best armor in the game that you can wear on your body. So it's going to give you 3 toughness, 1 to your armor class, and it's got 5 durability. So you could soak up 5 hits with this thing. So you can essentially soak up 15 points of damage if you're doing that 5 times for 3 toughness each time. This thing is absolutely insane. This is definitely going to go a long way to being able to defeat the bosses, because the bosses in the game are pretty difficult. But if you got plate mail, you're pretty much you're not assured to win, but you got a much better shot than if you don't have it. So you definitely want to try to pick up some plate mail when you're venturing through the dungeon. And then we got another common. This is the 6th common on the common loot table. It is an accessory. It is the potion. And it's pretty simple. It does pretty much what you think it would do. You may discard this card to heal 1d6 hit points. Very simple, but very effective. And yeah, I'm always happy anytime I pick up a potion in the dungeon, even when I don't need it, because it always comes in handy. So, and you got to have a potion in a dungeon crawler. So there you go, guys. That is the potion. Ooh, and here we go. We've got another rare. I really am fond of this card. This is the ring. It is an accessory. And this artwork is actually the ring that I wear on my left index finger. It is this ring. It is a Labradorite ring. Yeah, and I was just inspired to draw this ring into the game. So my ring that I wear in real life is in Crypt Crawler, which is pretty cool. And you could pick this up in the dungeon. So as mentioned, it is a rare. It's going to be pretty rare to find it. But it says, reduce the amount of fear, burn, and poison damage inflicted to you by 1. So those pesky zombies and ghosts with their fear, this is going to help against them. And the demon and the warlock trying to burn you, this is also going to mitigate a lot of their burn. And of course, the spider and the ooze are going to have their poison output mitigated by the ring. So this is just a really useful item against like 6 of the enemies in the game. And any traps or events that you run into through the dungeon, if they would cause fear or burn or poison, this is going to mitigate that by 1. So this ring is super, super powerful and definitely belongs in the rare slot. And we've got another rare from the rare loot table. This is the third one. It is an accessory. It is the rune. And this says increase your strength by 1. Very simple, but very, very powerful. So as long as you have the rune, you're going to be dealing 1 extra damage for the rest of the dungeon. This is super powerful, and this is going to add up quick. After all the battles you get in, you're going to be tacking on tons of damage as you move your way through the dungeon. So obviously, if you get the rune early on, that is amazing. You really want to try to get this as early as possible, but heck, even if you get it late in the dungeon before you reach the boss, this is going to help a lot with every attack that you have dealing 1 extra damage. So there you go, guys. This is definitely a rare that you want to pick up, the rune. And then we got the big brother to the buckler. This is an uncommon, the third uncommon. This is the shield, and it is a offhand item, or you can hold it in one hand. So you can have a one-handed weapon, and you can have this shield, of course. It blocks 2 with the toughness. It gives you 0 to your armor class. So it's got the same stats as the buckler, but it's got double the durability at 4. So you'll be able to tank up to 8 damage with the shield. So yeah, it's essentially just a beefed up, doubled up version of the buckler. So if you got the buckler and you pick up the shield, you can go ahead and drop the buckler on the ground and equip this thing. It's going to be much better. So yeah, you'll be able to mitigate a lot of damage in the dungeon with the shield. Oh, and then we've got maybe my favorite common. This is the second on the common list, and the other armor that you can wear on your head that I mentioned earlier when we looked at the helmet. This is the skull cap. I want to know if you guys recognize what this skull cap is modeled after. I'm not even going to say. Put it down in the comments below if you know what this skull cap is modeled after. My entire love for dungeon crawler games is actually based off of the video game that this cap is modeled after. I would love to know if you guys know what it is and put that down in the comments section below. So the skull cap, its ability is even kind of geared a little bit sort of toward what this item does in the game that it's from. It's not called the skull cap in the game that it's from. I'll give you a hint. It's called the Shaco. It's called the Shaco in the game that it's from. So this item is going to give you 1 toughness. It's going to give you 0 to your armor class, and it's only got 2 durability. So, I mean, it is just like a little leather skull cap. So this is one of the lowly armors that you're going to pick up, but you'll be able to mitigate a couple damage with it, and it's got a pretty cool ability. When you defeat an enemy, you gain +1 gold. So if you're lucky enough and you're able to hang on to the skull cap long enough and not take damage and lose it, you can really rack up the gold. So that way when you find a shop, maybe you can buy one of those fragments up on the top shelf that you wouldn't have been able to otherwise. Maybe you can buy yourself, some health potions or a fear potion to lower your fear. You never know. This is definitely going to come in handy in gaining you some extra gold. And then we've got another piece of body armor. This is the tunic. It is a common, so you're going to pick it up pretty frequently. It's the 4th common. And yeah, it's pretty simple. It gives you 1 to your toughness, 0 to your armor class, but it's got a durability of 3. So it is going to mitigate 3 damage from 3 separate attacks. So nothing too crazy, but just a little leather tunic. So this is one of the more, like I said, common loot that you're going to get. So it can't be too crazy, obviously, because you might find multiple tunics in one playthrough. So very simple little item, doesn't have any special abilities, but it's going to help a lot to mitigate some of that damage. And it might even just keep you alive until you get through the end of the dungeon. And we've got our last piece of loot. Let's end it on a high note with a rare. This is the second on the rare loot table. It is the Warhammer. I really dig the way this artwork came out too. I just love purple. Purple's my favorite color, so I love the purple, like the dark bluish, almost navy blue purple wrapping around the handle of the Warhammer. I love the way that looks. Just a cool looking item. And this is a 2-handed weapon, much like the Claymore and the Longbow. This is the other 2-handed weapon in the game. And this thing does a pretty good bit of damage. It's actually similar in damage output to the longsword because it does 3 for both of its first 2 attacks. So if you roll a 1 through 5, you're going to do 3 damage. But if you roll a 6, you are smashing dudes. You're hitting for 7 damage if you roll a 6. And it says once per battle, you may add 1 to your roll when rolling to inflict damage to an enemy. So once you've rolled to hit them and you've rolled their armor class or higher, then you roll for damage. If you say you roll a 5, you can add 1 to it to make it a 6 and hit them for 7. So essentially, if you roll a 5 or a 6, you're dealing 7 damage. And of course, that's once per battle. And if you hit them typically for 7 damage with the Warhammer and you add your strength to it, most of the time you just outright kill them. So the Warhammer is definitely a very powerful weapon. And of course, because of that, it's falling into the rare loot slot. So there it is, guys. That's all of the loot in Crypt Crawler. Let's move on and take a look at the next card type. Now we're moving on to the resolution side of the dungeon cards. First thing you'll notice, it's got a red outline all the way around it. We're going to go ahead and pretty much ignore that. That's going to get changed. It'll be gray all the way to the edge of the card, just like the enemies and the loot that we've already taken a look at. But this is cool because you can kind of see what the card is going to look like. Basically, it'll be shaped like the area with inside of the red. So, you know, it'll be like a mint tin sized shaped card. That's basically what these cards are going to look like. So we've got a few things on the card we'll go over. Kind of go through these pretty quickly. I'm not going to read every single bit of text on the card, but at the top of the card, you'll notice there are 4 symbols. This is going to modify the enemy's 4 stats. So it's got health, toughness, strength, and speed. So in this case, if you were fighting an enemy and this is one of the resolution cards that you've got, it's going to modify his toughness by 1. He'll gain 1 toughness, and the enemy will also gain 1 speed. So, and there's a bunch of different values on all of these resolution cards. So it's really going to be dynamic, the enemies that you're fighting and their stats that they have, which I think is really, really cool. And of course, as you go deeper into the dungeon, whatever level you're on, you draw that many resolution cards to add as modifiers to the enemy. So it really starts to stack up. Then, of course, you see the 3 different colored symbols. Those correlate to the symbols on the map side of the cards, which we're going to look at next. And you'll whichever symbol you're on the map card, say you're on a green circle in the room on the map card, you're going to go ahead and resolve the green circle on this side of the resolution card, whichever resolution card that you draw. So, of course, the green is going to be easier. The yellow triangle is going to be kind of like the medium difficulty. And then the red diamond is going to be harder difficulty. And then there's an even harder one that you could potentially push your luck into, which is a purple star, which we'll see soon enough. And then you'll notice, too, around that red diamond, there's a white outline. So you have a chance to push your luck in the rooms. So if you land on a room and you don't want to resolve the resolution card, you could push your luck past it into a new one. And then you check the symbol that's got the white outline around it on the resolution card that you've pushed your luck into. And that's the symbol that you have to resolve. So this one's a bad one. If you pushed your luck into this one, you'd have to fight a Banshee, which is no good. You don't want to push your luck into this one. And then also, you'll notice in the bottom half of the card, it's got the red symbol. It's got the little red diamond symbol. And then it says altar next to it. So you would also have to resolve the altar event on this card if you pushed your luck into it. And of course, if you're on a red room and you decide, yeah, I want to fight the Banshee because I want to go to the altar, you could do that too. So, yeah, that's the way that works. And I'm not going to go through all the text for all of the events here, but you can pause and read all this stuff if you want to. So we're just going to kind of go through a few of them so that you could see them. Here we've got the corpse event card, and you'll notice up at the top, it's got a gold coin symbol. That means that you can go to the shop. So after you're done resolving everything on this card, the bit at the top, you know, fighting if you have to fight something, or if you're in a red room and you have to pick up the food, or if you're in the yellow room, you'd fight the skeleton and then you would deal with the corpse event. Once you're done all that stuff, you have the option to go to the shop. And then we've got one of those cards I was just mentioning with the purple star on it. So if you push your luck into this card, it's got the white outline around the purple star, which means you have to resolve the purple star, no matter what the symbol is in the room that you're standing in. And this one, you'd have to fight a troll, which is pretty gnarly. You would get a food if you managed to beat him, but you got to fight a troll, which is really, really tough. And then you would have to resolve that noxious gas trap, since it's got the purple star in the event box right there. And you don't want to have to do that because you're going to get some poison, as you can see down below, either 2, 3, or 4 poison. So this is a gnarly resolution card to push your luck into. And then next up, we've got a card with the Steam Geysers event on it. Pretty normal card here. There's not going to be any shops or anything, but yeah, you'll run into some Steam Geysers, which is going to lower your stamina. And then we've got the Hidden Stash. If you manage to resolve this card in a red diamond room, you'll find a hidden stash, which could give you some gold or an uncommon loot. This is a good one. Then next up, we've got the Dart Trap event card. This one you don't want to run into. This one could potentially poison you, but there's a slight chance that it might miss you also, which is good. And sometimes it might be worth going to because you can see the symbol at the top. That's the soul fragment symbol. That means that you found a shrine where you can combine 5 of your soul fragments into a soul crystal. You're definitely going to want to find these cards, especially when you've got enough soul fragments to combine into a crystal. You're going to be looking for these pretty frequently throughout the game, and they're essential to reaching the boss and beating Crypt Crawler. Then we've got the net trap event room. This one can reduce your stamina. You get pulled up into a net and you got to struggle to get out. That's tiring. So it's going to make your stamina go down. But much like the dart trap, there's a chance for this trap to miss. Then we've got the room with the remains strewn across the dungeon floor. This is going to cause fear, but if you can stomach it, you might be able to find some gold amongst the guts and gore on the floor. So there's an upside to it. And you've got a shop that you can go to within this room too. On this resolution card, we've got the abandoned camp event. This one's really good, guys. You can find food, you can find oil. You might even find food and oil and a couple gold to add to your pocket. This is definitely one of the better event cards to find. Okay, guys, we got a good one here. This is the best resolution card that you could push your luck into. If you push your luck into this one, you gain 1 oil and 1 rare loot card. And not only that, you get to visit the golden idol. So we're going to check this one out. A golden angel idol rests atop a marble pedestal. Offer it 3 gold to receive a blessing. So you can offer this 3 gold to the idol and you'll receive 1 of the blessings down below that will give you back health and it will reduce your fear. I'm also noticing where it says offer it 3 gold to, the O is a little cut off. So I'm gonna have to go back and edit that and make the text a little smaller so it's not cut off. If you have keen observation skills, you might have noticed that, but I saw it immediately. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and change that. But yeah, this is the best card that you can push your luck into. And then we've got another pretty gnarly one here. If you push your luck into this, you have to fight a troll, but you might get some leftovers because there's a plate of food that's resting on the table and you got to go ahead and chow down. You don't have a choice. You got to do it. You might get poisoned because the food is old, or you might gain some food to increase your health and stamina. So in the rare event that you do push your luck into this and you got to fight a troll, at least there's maybe an upside to it after. Okay, guys, now we've got a pretty interesting one. This is the haunted room. So if you push your luck into this room, you get a rare loot, but it's also haunted and it's going to cause you fear. And it's also got another upside in that it has a shrine in it. So you could potentially combine your soul fragments to get a soul crystal. So this is a really good one. Then we've got the flame trap room, much like the net trap and the dart trap. This one can deal some damage to you, but it can potentially miss. So this is a pretty basic one here. It's just a regular trap. You might take some damage and it might miss you too. You might get out unscathed by the flame trap. Then we've got the gnarliest of the rooms, I think, to push your luck into. You got to fight a demon if you push your luck into this, and there's an evil aura in the room that can give you fear. And the only takeaway is that there is a shrine in this room that you could get some, potentially some soul crystals from. So you definitely want to do this one when you're not, when you're not pushing your luck into it. You want to resolve this one whenever it comes up as the first card most of the time. And then we've got the ambush event card here. This one is going to spawn a random enemy for you, either a goblin, a skeleton, or a ghost if you resolve this as the yellow triangle card room. So this is a pretty cool one right here. You might pick up some extra loot and goodies from the ambush that you fight. The only downside is that the enemy always attacks first, regardless of speed. So this is definitely a high risk, high reward resolution card. And we've got the last resolution card. The cool thing about this one is it has a shrine in it. So you can combine your soul fragments here for a soul crystal. And there's also the event, the well. So there's a well in this room that you might be able to get some food or gold out of. But definitely the good thing about this room is that it has a shrine. And that's it, guys. That's all for the resolution cards. And last but not least, guys, we're going to look at the map side of the resolution cards. We're just going to go through these really quickly. There's not too much to look at here. You've got all the rooms, obviously, as you can see, with the symbols in it, so you know what you're resolving on the flip side of the next dungeon card that you flip over on the resolution side. And it's got a couple little symbols here and there. You could see that there is a staircase that's got an amber glow on it. That's where you're going to enter the map card. So you'll put your little meeple right there whenever you enter the map. And the first room you move into obviously will be that first room off of the staircase. Then you'll see the golden key symbol up in the top left. You have to make your way to that golden key so that you can make your way over to the lock symbol, the little keyhole symbol in the top right of the card. And that is going to be where you exit the map card to move down to the next level of the dungeon. So not too much to talk about with these, but there's a bunch of different layouts. As you can see, I'll scroll through these on the screen. And yeah, there's going to be a bunch of different layouts. Some of them are better. Some of them are worse. You might want to get some of these earlier on. Some of them are going to be tougher. You might have to backtrack, use up more of your oil. So yeah, definitely add some variety to the dungeon layouts that you're going to be moving through. And there we go, everybody. Those are all of the cards that I have to show you in this update video for Crypt Crawler. I hope you enjoyed this, dude. There's still more to come. I still have to design the bosses. I got to draw the boss cards. I have to draw the class cards. I have to draw the race cards and then the shop card. And that's it. That's all that's left. It's a little bit, it's about half of the game, I think, that's still left to do, but we're getting there, dudes. We are getting there. I've made a lot of progress on the game so far. Hope you guys are digging it. I hope you're as excited as I am about Crypt Crawler. I cannot wait to release this game and have you guys get a physical copy of the game and play the game and give me your feedback on it. And I can't wait to get my own copy and do my own playthroughs of my own game on the channel. That is going to be so fun and so rewarding. So I'm just really looking forward to it. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for all the support and positive feedback that you've given me since I released the beta playtest on the Tabletop Simulator. And yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. Really appreciate all of you so much. So if you liked the video, be sure to hit that thumbs up like button, hit that red subscribe button to sub to the channel, hit the bell icon so you can stay notified every time I upload new videos. And I got more Crypt Crawler updates coming your way, guys, and more playthroughs of other solo player tabletop games. So be on the lookout for that. And until next time, have a good one. I'll see you guys in the next video.